So yeah, we're talking about sleep country metal today. We're talking about sleep country, essential sleep country albums. We've got the classic jingle. We've got the classic jingle. So, do you, as truly an expert in your field, do you want to give the chat a quick little how would you define funeral doom music besides sleep country? Pretend you're not talking to me. Pretend you're talking to like Metal Hammer or Revolt. Someone where they're a professional in their field.
Sure. Oh, Blaine, I think you're a professional. Don't even say that. Anyhow, I guess I've been thinking about this since we've been talking about doing this show. I'm like, what is it that makes funeral doom? And then I started thinking about, like, my head, of course, went to the, like, what came first, death or doom? Kind of went to that, and it was like, well, obviously, like, I think everyone could kind of agree that Black Sabbath would be kind of ground zero. Not that they, just appeared on Earth. Like, obviously they were pulling things from other places, and they had inspirations and whatnot that was influencing what they were doing. But I think that if we just said their ground zero, I mean, what Black Sabbath would be the first song, which is, I think, Geezer Butler said he was listening to that. What's the planets that classical
Mars?
piece? Yeah, Mars. Yeah. Which it kind of does have that. It's kind of like the Star Wars song too, like the. Anyhow, but like that's not so different from a Death Doom riff if we're really getting down to it.
Yeah.
Like, dun, 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 like that's everyone's been ripping on that riff for decades now. So.
Oh yeah. You can't. Yeah, I mean, Black Sabbath is definitely like if you're playing Doom or Death Doom or Funeral Doom, and you're like, damn, I need a fresh idea for my new album.
Yeah, just go right to ground zero. It's always going to be good. It's the gift that keeps giving, so to say. But yeah, so I guess like I'm not saying that I think that's where Funeral Doom started by any means, but
it is certainly
that kind of had to be stated to respect the elders, so to say. But I don't know. Like, I think probably the common and correct answer would be between Thurgothon, which I think I'm saying that right, Thurgothon, or is it Thurgothon, or like everyone has an opinion that seems to be ununanimous. But then there's skepticism, then there's esoteric and funeral and
God, you're listed, you're giving away all the whole show.
I'm waking everyone up. No, but I mean, I guess so, like I don't know which one came first. And like I think when those albums were coming out, I was like a preteen. I wasn't.
Yes.
I was in a small town in Kansas. I didn't know. I wasn't being exposed to any of that. Unfortunately, I wish I had. But
you mean in 1994 you weren't listening to Thurgothon, Stream of the Heaven?
Yeah, I was 12. But I guess like. For me, I mean, those are obviously the ones that probably came first chronologically. That would be considered to be what we would now call funeral doom. I doubt they were calling it funeral doom in 1994, 1995. But I guess like the first things that ever hit me that I think probably made the biggest impressions were the two first Worship albums. There's Doom. And last cassette or last whatever before Doomsday. And then there's Stormcrow Fleet by Skepticism, of course, is I remember the first time I heard that, it was like, what the fuck is that? Then Mournful Congregation, for sure.
Yeah, we have Berkshire Hunt in the chat saying the Monad of Creation by Mournful Congregation was the first Funeral Doom album he heard and left a lasting impression. I'd put that as an essential album. I think we're probably going to talk about them. And
I think if one were to say like what kind of like I don't know, my opinion, of course. I wouldn't say I'm an authority by any means, but I think that when we start talking about when does Funeral Doom become Funeral Doom? Because at a certain point, it wasn't Funeral Doom. It was just, I don't know, weird, slow death metal. Weird death doom. I don't know, like doom death.
Don't you dare.
Whatever the hell it is, a sleep country. But I was talking to So that when Jesse joined Bellwitch, the first show he played was with Warship in Seattle,
Oh
Washington.
yeah.
It was like the coolest show, and they were fucking awesome. And we were talking afterwards, and we were all just drinking beer, just bullshitting, and they were talking about like recording those first records. And I think I even just being drunk, I was like, "So were you like?" Were you thinking about Funeral Doom when you were writing this stuff? And we were like, no, no one was calling it that. Like, like that wasn't even really said back then. We kind of didn't really have necessarily a name for it. It was like just Death Doom or
Yeah, I mean, well, it's similar to what there's this kind of weird thing that happens retroactively. You talk a lot of it about with like At the Gates being like the band that like, or At the Gates and like a couple others like creating melodic death metal, and people being like, oh, they set out to make a melodic death metal record. It's like,
sure,
how would they know what that is? That's not a thing yet.
Sure. And it's cool how the things kind of like different artists or different bands in like different parts of the world kind of maybe play off each other. Maybe you're playing just similar things unbeknownst of each other, and then like something kind of, I don't know, kind of like pyramids into its own thing. Maybe.
Yeah.
And then like this like other thing kind of comes out of it, and they can kind of expand from there even. Like, and then when you think about like the Esoteric, who were like that first Esoteric album, I mean, came out in what, the 90s? Like that's early stuff, and that record's fucking awesome.
Yes.
And it's not lo-fi. It's not shittily recorded.
Yeah, like the first couple, like it's like psychedelic, and it seems like it was, it seems like they were like sad and on drugs as opposed to just sad when they made it compared to most of the other ones.
Like maybe they had peyote in their cup or something.
Hey there, who knows?
Yeah, but that record's super fucking cool, and I think that's like a cool little building block too, because that's like, if that's a death metal record in so many ways.
Yeah.
But then in so many other ways, it's like this isn't just death metal though. Like there's wild shit going on here that isn't really easily described, I guess.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's definitely like even like weird like noise elements and stuff, and yeah, they're just that's definitely we're getting a little ahead. We should probably we're getting a little ahead. We're both just getting excited, so we should probably pick. We gotta talk about an absolute legend album, kind of the one that's first. I think it's probably pretty safe to say like the kind of legend, the kind of like genre kind of creator and definer would you'd kind of have to put something out of Finland, because this is sort of like Finland really gets to claim Funeral Doom as like they could put it in like it's like a brochure. What does Finland have to offer? And they'd be like, oh, like fucking pickled trout and like Funeral Doom or whatever it is.
Yeah, lakes and Funeral Doom and trout.
Yeah. So Thurgotten, easy. Thurgotten, Stream from the Heavens is legend. Period. So I would say we've got kind of two. We have two to kind of, maybe it could be both, but two for sure to kind of argue about, to maybe put a poll in the chat about, because you absolutely have here, sorry, my windows. You have Thurgotten and you have Skepticism, both coming out around the same time, certainly with not enough time for one to really be like influencing the other kind of quite yet. I mean, if an album comes out, some people will be like, oh, that came out in 94 and that came out in 95, and it's like, yeah, but by the time that album came out, they were like they were writing that
sure,
you can't really,
and they're very different records.
They are.
Like pre-pandemic, I was like the booker at a music venue, and like part of that job is trying to match bills, or trying to match bands to make a bill that like sound alike. So like, say X band is coming through on tour, and I'm going to find a local band to play with them. I want to find a band that doesn't necessarily sound exactly like them. I want to find someone that's a little different, that kind of complements it, if it can be done. And like those two complement each other really well, but they definitely don't sound a lot alike. Like in that, in 1995, if someone were to say, yeah, these bands are in the same genre, I'd be like, I don't know, those bands sound pretty different to me. I don't know if that's the same
Yeah,
genre.
right. I know. I know.
Now we say that they're the two that started the genre, but like Forgotten, I think, is way more on like the kind of death metal side of the genre, where Skepticism is something different. Like it's almost like a more of a classical sort of vibe, and maybe even like some like math rock or I don't know. They're who sounds like they're like no one sounds like Skepticism.
Yeah,
They're
yeah. I
almost
mean,
in a league of their own. Even like Funeral Doom aside, like they're just Skepticism. They're hard to classify.
well, good luck. Good thing. The thing we do on this show is classify.
Fair enough.
Is classify. So we're
I've
gonna.
had a lot of espresso also.
I know, right? You're cranked. It's good.
Opinions
That's what we want. That's what we want. All right, we've got a poll going in the chat. We got 2 minutes to decide who the legend is. I mean, technically it could be both. We could, sometimes we have two little legends. If it's not Black Sabbath, you're leaving. That's a great proto band, but. J Mage, Funeral Doom, one of your favorite genres? Hell yeah, that's what we're talking about. Harry, Stream from the Heavens is absolutely deserving of the legend. We've got Twitch Stream from the Heavens. Hell yeah, this is truly a Twitch Stream from the Heavens if you're a Funeral Doom fan. Funerals, Tragedies came out. Yeah, we'll talk about Funeral in a minute, but we've got to pick a Finnish legend. This definitely really is a genre that is incredibly. I mean, anything with the word doom in it tends to be pretty Finn dominated. But this is, I think, of all the. If I had to assign one genre to Finland, if I was, picking where a genre would go, definitely, I think Funeral Doom is Finland gets to claim.
Absolutely. And like, what year? Do we know what years those came out?
Yeah, so Thurgothen came out in 1994, and Skepticism came out in 1995. Cool. Yeah, and it's interesting because it's almost like well, clearly I don't think I imagine this was probably just like similar streams of consciousness. Thurgothen is the one that sounds like jankier. It certainly sounds like the record that would have come out before the other one, like the clean vocals are like wild, right? Like there's definitely like there's like a wackiness to them, whereas like you get with Skepticism you get a lot more of like the kind of defining thing that you think about is like a lot more with the keyboards, really kind of cool, like if it like a low budget fantasy production you'd see on like Mystery Science Theater or something, you'd be like, oh, this movie's hilarious, but then you'd hear these keyboards and you'd be like, damn, what the hell synth is that? Where do I get one of those? Oh my god.
Big spooky Hammond B3 going on.
Yeah. All right, well, the chat in the poll decided that it was Thurgothen as the legend. So there you go. The chat helping us decide, picking. God, I was saying this to you earlier. This is out of all the streams we've done so far, this one is the trickiest for me operating on the tier list because it's just like that's the Skepticism album cover. It's like, do you remember that one that's like slightly glowy orange versus the one that? And I mean the Thurgothen album color, that was like, I don't know, I was trying to find a decent image of it, and they were all kind of a little lo-fi, and the one I found had like a slightly different color palette to it. I don't know if it was a re-release, but that Thurgothen album also has like an orange glow to it, I think, in the initial release, and it's like, yeah, just ridiculous. Is there Finnish stoner doom? I don't know.
Yeah, there is.
Der Beer Kaiser asking, yeah. Dr. Poivre, you don't want to leave work in 30 minutes. I want to listen to the stream until it ends. Well, I don't know. Put in an earbud, get it going on your cell phone. Twitch does have a mobile app. It doesn't work as well as the website. The website's the best, but it does exist. Speaking of Finland, shout out to Sarah. Yeah, we have our fantastic Sarah Kitteringham moved to Finland recently. One of our banger team. She moved there. She'll be back soon though. I think we'll try and get her in the studio next time she's here. Yeah, just up and move to Finland. I mean, it's where her family's from, but that's a tricky country to move to. I mean, just thinking about her talking about doing like the Finnish Duolingo. Like, you're just like open it up and you're like, this is wild. This is yeah.
I bet that's tough.
Funky Pico, I've been on mobile shopping around in record stores for this entire stream. Hey, I love to hear that. That's a great way to do this. This is a great way to do this. In a record store, listening to people endlessly talk about records is, I think a great way to spend your time. If you ask me, I love it, loving it. All right. What?
Nothing.
Was this a joke? Was this a joke that I almost made you repeat and you?
No, I'm trying to learn. Everyone says meta about things. Right? At least I'm noticing people saying that right now in my life. I'm noticing this, and I think if you're in a record store listening to something about records, I think that would be meta if I'm understanding it correctly.
That feels like you got it. That feels like meta. That feels like meta. True Cult Records printing merch for today. Now I can focus on this. Were you printing pillowcases? Huh? Inky saying that's pretty meta of you to say, Dylan.
Ooh.
There you go. Dear Beer Kaiser coming in with the meta metal, and Godzilla's coming in with the meta comedy. Thank you.
Damn.
Totally high fidelity, suitably bun. Yeah, definitely a high fidelity vibe. Except I'm not going to incorrectly reference the wrong Evil Dead movie.
Ooh.
The high fidelity movie, there's an Evil Dead reference that's incorrect. They reference Evil Dead 2, but they actually are referencing Army of Darkness. Actually.
Oh wow, I never caught that. That's funny.
Yeah. Hey, Cats and Snacks, good to see you. Thanks for coming out. Necrogoblicon's meta best Funeral Doom album. Yeah, take that old ass movie. I put it in. I put it in its place. So yeah, I think this is fair. I mean, for me, I definitely think, Thurgothan came first, and I do like the kind of, there is something where it's like, almost like it's kind of a more legendary in that it is like, I'd say it's technically probably not as good if you were like rating it. Like from being like, I have to assign these a review score. I'd probably give it a slightly lower score than Skepticism, but I'd listen to it more because like the things that are wrong with it, it's almost like so much Funeral Doom, like there's something a little wrong with the album. Like you're like, even just the fact that like as we go on, we get to like, oh well, what's this album? It's 3 tracks. They're all 20 minutes. Like there's something like there has to be something a little inhospitable about a Funeral Doom album to really feel like we're fully embracing Funeral Doom.
Damn straight. And I think in that regard too, the Thurgothan record is like, with today in 2022 when we're talking about Funeral Doom, I think that the attributes that we're thinking of that would fit in with the genre are all mostly all present on that Thurgothan album, where the skepticism is just a class of their own.
Yeah,
and they can definitely be categorized as Funeral Doom, but they're just like, no one sounds like Skepticism. I mean, at least no one I've ever heard of.
Yeah,
it's like something can have elements of Skepticism, but no one can touch Skepticism. They're just their own thing.
Yeah, I mean, that cool. I mean, I love the vocals like already being so low, and then also like being recorded. I don't know, down the hall, as we say. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like what where's that microphone? Where are you in relation to that microphone?
He's just screaming at the Hammond organ where the microphone is pointed at the Leslie speaker. From across the room. Yeah.
It got locked out.
Totally.
I'm afraid of making bad takes, but I'd say Skepticism is essential, but Thurgothan sounds more like Funeral Doom, as mentioned. But since Skepticism is weird, yeah, I think we're all on the same take. We're all on the same page on the Thurgothan Skepticism vibe, But like I said, I feel like the legend just had to be from Finland. But it's come up in the chat. I think you mentioned it a little bit. Another big one is funerals, tragedies. Coming out of close to Finland, Norway, also coming in that weird bubble of time, coming out in 1995. This would probably be if someone asked me like, "Hey Blaine, I want to listen to like the roots of Funeral Doom, but like I'm still not like sold on Funeral Doom. I'd probably give them give them the Funeral record first, because it's like, of all the early ones, it's like the most listenable to like a person that hasn't like kind of, these two are a bit of an ice bath, and if you just kind of like put someone in, they're gonna like tense up. This is like a Funeral is like a nice. It's not quite as sharp and pointy. It's you've got those the really pretty female vocals, kind of like blunting the learning curve of Funeral Doom a bit, and they're paired well with the harsh vocals, and you get a little bit of cool. The first track's in Norwegian, the rest of it's in English, so you get to feel like it's something kind of.
It's something that I love about that record. Also, it's like it still requires a bit of attention. Like you can't just. It's not easy listening. Like you can't just put it on and go about your day, and you have this pleasant background music of Funeral.
Yeah.
It's like it's tough. It's like hard to, you got to kind of swallow it as it's playing, which I think is something that we could say just as well about Dergothen or Skepticism. And I mean it as the highest compliment I can give. Like I think that's a really cool thing to do in music. Like maybe it's easy to write something that's just like easy and to fall into, and like I don't know, but to make something that's kind of like you can't fall into it. It's kind of there's a gruel to it, if you will.
Yeah.
I think that's fucking cool, and the Tragedies definitely has that.
Yeah, where it's you kind of get and understand that like it's as silly as it seems, and some people thinking it's like a little bit for show. That frequently this is like a genre with like 20-minute songs, or an album that's just one song, or a 2-hour long album, because it's like the goal is not to like have you listen to a song. That's not really the kind of intention of this, and it's not like some like high-minded like songs are bad. It's like, no, we want to take you to a place, and I can't take you there in 8 minutes, and I can't take you there if you're like also in the grocery store. I want you to sit down. I want you to be in like a beanbag chair with like one of those springy headphone cables going to an amplifier, and
a cup of hot, delicious peyote tea.
And a cup of hot, delicious peyote infused throat coat. the way Finland intended when they created this genre of music. Long drive home music, yeah. I mean, Boina Bornai is coming to us from Norway, so I imagine you've got some like pretty perfect. Canada also has that, where it's like snowing and you're on a drive and there's like 8 cars on the road, and you're like, well, this is my next 6 hours. There's like nothing to focus on. Long drive home on sleep country roads. There you go. Can't listen to it in the car. You'll be asleep at the wheel. Yeah, there's actually a law. It's illegal to listen to Funeral Doom. Funeral Doom's treated like alcohol when you're driving. It needs to be out of the reach of the driver and sealed still.
Do not operate a moving vehicle.
Yeah. Tragedies is so good. Fields of Pestilent Grief may be even better, but less impactful for the Funeral Doom genre. Yeah, this is kind of where you really get a thing that's a bit of a through line in the genre that pops up every once in a while. The kind of like Beauty and the Beast, like Goblin Man talking to Angel Lady, like. You want
which is cool though. There's like that dualism to it, which I think I love that. I think that's so cool, just to have like this kind of it's like there's an unconscious argument going on in the song, which is awesome.
Yeah, it feels a little less. Because of the kind of like stripped down nature of everything else, the part of the problem with it's something that similar that they do in like symphonic metal, but with the symphonic metal, you know, there's like 12 layers of auto-tune on everybody's voice. There's like 18 violins playing with it, and you're like, this is a lot. I'm getting overwhelmed. You know, you have this the duality can really kind of be a little more kind of the focus and a little less of like one of 1,200 things going on when you're doing it to a Funeral Doom Records.
Yeah, the Funeral Doom record is actually just Animal and Kermit the Frog having an argument.
That's great. That's great. That's really going to ruin this record for me, so I thank you for that. Harry wants to road trip the Pacific Northwest while listening to Funeral Doom. You need to do that before dying. Heavy Metal Merce got pretty high and set up Mirror Reaper to end with the sunset. That's pretty awesome. That is pretty awesome. We might have to talk about Mirror Reaper at some point on this Essential Funeral Doom albums list. It might come up. I've done this, a lot of static from somewhere. I guess it's when I'm moving around too much. I'll have to be very Funeral Doom still. I'm Finnish and I know nothing about this genre. Perhaps you can enlighten me about my culture. Well, Purasame, thanks for coming out. And yeah, this is we were saying this is a genre that very much comes from Finland. It's got deep roots in Finland. You know, of the bands we're going to talk about, a whole plethora of them are going to come from Finland. Inky, getting your coffin blind? Yep, just got to be very still to not rustle the mics. We're operating with labs, you know. We do recorded more than we do live, and then now we've forayed into live again, but we mostly have wireless microphones. And as we all know from performing in any capacity, when the venue has like a wireless microphone, you're like, get this away from me, I'm not using this. Why would anyone ever speak into a wireless microphone? This needs to be wired to something. Dear God, dear God, dear God.
Dear God.
Even just the light, it's like they're always like light. They always feel like cheap, terrible. Sorry, I'm gonna go off about wireless microphones. Yeah, True Cult Records. If you don't put Reaper there, then it'll be like B was guest at the Death Doom Lockhorns and nobody else heard of Hooded Menace. That was true. The first thing I did for BangerTV was I was on we used to do this show way back years ago, well, like 6 years ago now, and I came on as the expert on Death Doom. And for my legend, I was like, Hooded Menace, and then the entire chat was like, who's Hooded Menace? And I was like, I'm sorry, what? But then a good portion of the chat was like, what is Death Doom? And I was like, okay, fair, okay, this is coming from an honest place. But
well, if you had told them Doom Death, they might have known what you were talking about.
Hey, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you?
Or Sleep Country. I mean, you know, to each their own. Tomato, tomato.
Sudalabun thinks the low-res pictures are what's causing the audio. They're not low-res, they're just small. They're just small, and Funeral Doom albums are oh, what the hell? Uh-oh. Sorry, just got an ad. Just got a quick ad. I was like, why am I being advertised ham? It wasn't ham, it was Adobe stock photo, but yeah, Harry, lo-fi music, lo-fi mic. Inky asks, how do we ban the guest? All right. We're getting off track. We're getting a little silly. You talked about them earlier, so it seems like a good segue. We got a little excited about the bring back the ham photos. Everybody's cheering for the ham.
Strawberry cake. I thought it was strawberry cake.
I thought it was ham. Did I not say? I don't know. Ham. We talked a little bit about Esoteric. They of course have a bunch of albums, but the Pernicious Enigma is definitely, I think, the most interesting, the weirdest one. That I mean, my favorite. I don't know about yours. I don't know how you rank them, but this is it's just a weird album. It's just a weird album.
There's no bad Esoteric album. They're all fucking killer.
Yeah, but this was the album where they were like, minute of like harsh noise, cool. You want to do a little spoken word jazz part? Yeah, sure. I'm not even gonna sing. Let me just spoken word this. Can you give me a little? Can you give me a little nice backbeat?
Right. And they incorporate so many different like really interesting elements into it that I've always kind of felt like. I mean, I don't know how one would classify esoteric. I mean, they obviously are called a funeral doom band, and I think that's fitting. But they're also very unique. And I mean, like, could we name three bands that sound a lot like esoteric? We could name three bands that sound a lot like Black Sabbath,
Yeah.
but there's not three bands that sound a lot like esoteric or skepticism for that matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, especially at this point, you're getting a lot of like singular albums as people figure thing out. The only band I can think of that I really, they don't even sound alike. It's just like in spirit almost. I think like Blue Dust Nord in the black metal world kind of is esoteric-y, right? You know, they have a lot of variety between albums, especially right now. They're in their like hallucinogen phase, and they're getting. And they're kind of, you know, there's even that the last album cover is kind of similar to this to the esoteric.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Harry asking, there's a name called Stygian Narcosis on that album. Are Bellwitch secret esoteric fans? Well, it sounds like he's not a secret esoteric fan, as we're just talking about how we're both really esoteric fans. The secret's out.
Secret's out.
The secret's out. Secret's out. How does the chat feel about esoteric? Have you heard this album? If you haven't heard this album, this is a very strange album. CEO of Gaming, esoteric. Never heard of him. This is a Naja in some way, but maybe sometimes. Yeah, that's again just someone that's like really experimenting in genres, really kind of.
Is it Naja in some ways? That sounds like esoteric. I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's actually a really interesting comparison.
Yeah, and that's from True Cult Records, whose runs actually a great little independent label out of Greece. Awesome. Called True Cult Records. Yeah, put out some great black metal recently in Sacred Sun, which was included in my Metal Monthly pick. Harry, as someone who claims to be a massive funeral doom, I haven't listened to this esoteric album. Probably going to fall asleep to it tonight. Yeah, this is Godzilla's S.O.Tarek. That would be if esoteric was like an oi punk band. They'd be called S.O.Tarek.
This esoteric album is like that's a wild one to go to sleep to. Also, there's a lot going on in there that is like it can be abrupt and it can be like jarring.
Yeah, you're gonna have some dreams for sure with that one. That's I mean, it's definitely we're getting into like the kind of more certainly more like this is an essential album, but like this might be the last essential early album I suggest to someone, you know, because it's like, okay, we need you to listen to a couple of albums before we get you here. This one is where we're starting that kind of really, someone's already kind of really being like, all right, well, we've established a genre. Let's go completely crazy in that genre and see where the walls are.
Well, so then like, do you know when the first Mournful Congregation record came out?
So the first Mournful Congregation record is coming out. I mean, it's not for a little while. I mean, they had some you know, like the demo in '94 and 95, but their first album comes out in 1999. But that one is the one that kind of like doesn't make a huge splash. It's weird that when you think about Mournful Congregation, you go, all right, Mournful Congregation is like clearly one of the early, you know, founders of this genre, really important, really influential. The Monad of Creation came out in 2005. What? Like it's like, you're like, what? That seems like there's a bit of a gap there between the other ones that you kind of like really associate with kind of the early stuff and them. I mean, but when I was, you know, researching, making sure I wasn't leaving anything out. I mean, outside of Vulcan, it's kind of like you don't have a lot of You kind of do have a bit of a lull until Mournful Congregation comes out. It's kind of like, some people planted some seeds, and then it took until Mournful Congregation before you get this kind of like sweep of like a bunch of kind of albums that people might actually know coming out. But I mean, we should probably talk about Evoken a little bit. What?
Do you know when the first Worship album came out?
The first Worship album came out. Let me double check.
I guess it was like one of the an early, like what the earliest one.
Yeah, first Doom came out in 2007. 2007. So again, you're getting like, again, it's a band that had a demo in 1999, last tape before Doomsday, and you're they're doing some splits. They're around. They're
99.
Yeah, they're around. They're present, but you're not kind of getting the kind of big album that people know and identify with until again, the 2000s. Evoken being kind of the weird outlier in a bunch of ways, kind of being one of the kind of first band to really kind of push the amount of death in the Doom, I think.
Sure.
Because the first Evoken album comes out in 1998. Quietus is probably like the one that people are more likely to have heard, the kind of better album, and that's coming out in 2001. And you're getting, this is kind of like, technically, I mean, if we wanted to get really obnoxious, this is where you could start saying, well, this is clearly funeral death doom metal. The other ones were funeral doom metal. But I don't know if this genre is quite deep enough for us to fragment off into a sub genre. I mean, it's like if you're not familiar with like the genre and you're coming from a place of heavier metal, you're more of a death metal fan, I'd say this Evoken Quietus is probably a really great starting point for the genre, because you're getting a lot more of the death metal heaviness, and the record also is kind of the first record where you go like, it sounds like it was made by people that like make records for a living, as opposed to like men in Finnish huts, like recording their next door neighbor making an album. Like, this is the one where you kind of get that, like, this is a record. Someone sought out to make a record. They contacted somebody and said, hey, you're an engineer and I like the way you make records sound. And they said, thank you. Can I work with you? Okay. And you kind of get your first record that is, doesn't feel like an underground thing to me. Feels a little bit more like a, all right, this is something we can start calling a genre, and not like a weird kind of passion project for a couple of dudes.
And it seems like there's connection with the early Evoken stuff with like the Peaceville 3 Death Doom records, like with the old Paradise Lost and Anathema and My Dying Bride, and which were all very much their own thing, of course. That's probably a different conversation. But I think that there's like and maybe there's overlap with Funeral into the Peaceville 3 as well. But I think that there's like a very clear one in the heavy regard of the Death Doom Peaceville 3 stuff with Evoken.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly if we're going to start when we start thinking about, if we want to label anything proto, I mean, definitely it seems like Peaceville 3 is kind of, you can draw direct kind of parallels between each of the three to a different band, and there's the kind of cool thing is you get the Peaceville 3, surprisingly, and that period where it is like one of those like kind of very subgenres death doom. You did have like, it is such an explosion from that where it really seems like it's such a nexus for underground metal. You have death doom, you have gothic metal, you have funeral doom, you have a bunch of stuff really coming from those bands, and those bands turning into those things. What do we got? What do we got in the chat? Mournful Congregation. We're gonna get to Mournful Congregation. Don't worry, chat. We've already gotten to them a little bit. So Blaine, when you bring up Shape of Despair, that's another one that is going to come up. Yes, we have another mention of Trevor. Yeah, we talked about off the top. Obviously, a very sad thing to happen, and right before a live stream kind of dominates your mind a little bit. But as we also said, no better way to kind of go through those emotions than with a group of people. So connections are important for mental health and happiness, even if we're connecting over like the saddest metal music ever made. And Evoken's a weird one because Evoken is like a lot of these bands, you know, are like kind of one album bands, or, you know, 3 album bands. They pop up in the 90s, then they disappear. Evoken is kind of just like a band, you know. They're signed to Profound Lore. They still put out records. The last record came out in 2018 and was amazing. You know, bit of an outlier in the Funeral Doom one for having a career that spans kind of the 90s up till now. Okay, this is the last time I'm going to mention these guys. I'll just force Blaine to list them on his channel. Bon from Russia, 91. You're claiming as a... I have not heard Bon from Russia. Have you? Are you familiar with them at all?
How do you spell that? B-O-N or V-O-N?
B-O, a weird Russian backwards squiggly on the top N.
I'm not familiar.
This is something I've never heard of.
I'm very intrigued, however.
I'm also intrigued.
There's a lot of really good Russian Funeral Doom bands.
Yeah, I mean, and 91 is really kind of predating a lot of what we're talking about here. You know, yeah, this is Funeral Doom Metal, Russia. 1 album, 1991. Huh. Well, this is something that's going to have to go on both of our lists. This is what Deadpan likes to do, though. He's a known entity in the chat. His whole life seems to revolve around finding something very old that you haven't heard about to trip you up.
Well, I am looking forward to checking that out. It's B-O and then like the Cyrillic. Is that the Russian?
Yeah, I mean, backwards N with a squiggle above it. And then the album is called Lord Knows. It's on Bandcamp? Damn.
Cool.
Yeah, there you go. Here, you know what? I'll send you the Bandcamp link. That's what you do. That's what we'll do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, well, Deadpan, I mean, I'm going to thank you in advance. If this sucks, I'm going to retract my thank you on a later stream, but coming in with a potential true originator, although with the way music works, it's probably that came out in 91 in Russia, and then no one in the West heard it until 20 years later.
And, you know, Russia and Finland are pretty damn close, so I wonder if there could have been...
Yeah, and you know they both have similar conditions, certainly, to breed, you know, something like Funeral Doom, very you know, cold, spaced out. You know, something we get a little bit over in Canada of as well.
You said 1991?
1991.
Right after the Berlin Wall fell down, so that would be like while the Soviet Union was still kind of crumbling.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
That's cool.
I know, right? That is like that. I mean, that's one of the cool things about this stream from the position of someone doing them more than someone watching them is that you know, every time we come with this list of stuff that we want to talk about and prepared, and then someone in the chat just drops a fat recommendation.
This is the point when we all act like we've been listening to that record for the past 50 years. Like, oh yeah, I remember that record came out.
Yeah. T minus 30 days till there's a banger video, and I'm like, you know, really reminiscent of Funeral Doom pioneers. You know, a band that doesn't get enough respect. Here's the Bandcamp link. You should definitely go listen to it. This is an album I love, and I think is very essential.
Right, I'm gonna do the same.
Yeah. Bellwitch Patreon post. One of the bands that inspired Bellwitch through their entire career.
Totally. I'm really excited to listen to that, though. That sounds really fucking cool.
Yeah, right? And then Deadpan saying the only reason he even found it is because a hipster recommended it to him when I was starting to check out Funeral Doom. And thus you have become the hipster yourself. It's like hipster scabies.
Well, it's like the how many hipsters did it take to change a light bulb? I liked their first 7-inch the best.
Jesus Christ. Oh no. Strap in, chat. That's not gonna be the last one, I promise you. You got more of those coming. You got more of those coming for sure. Shout out to Pantheist. Yeah, that's okay. So that's
Cool.
yeah, that's another one to talk about. From Shyamaminator. Speaking Infinity discovered them through a list of Dylan's favorite albums in 2018, and it's been one of my favorite Funeral Doom albums ever since. Absolutely. We're still in a little bit of an early period, but Pantheist, Oh Solitude, worth talking about. Came out in 2003.
Awesome record.
Out of Belgium, so you know we're getting a little bit more of a mix of countries in here, and yeah, it's kind of like the first maybe beautiful sounding Funeral Doom record, right?
Sure. Very pretty.
You get the synths have almost like a religious sound to them, you know, and then that album's weird because there's a part that almost sounds like nu metal-y, and then there's a part that's there's a flamenco-y sounding part with someone even clapping on the record. That's a weird one. Doom Music. Oh man, Pantheist, forgot about them. Aaron, 1986. I love Pantheist. Seems underrated to you. Yeah, definitely one. I'm it's surprised and impressed at the chat for kind of bringing up. That's one of those ones that is certainly a little more off the beaten path. I mean, you know, it's kind of surprising to hear people really digging Pantheist and then not as much having heard that Esoteric record, which is something you really kind of think of you know, the essentials, the kind of originals.
And both those bands are still putting out records too, which is very cool.
Yeah. Still to this day. Yeah, the one that inspired the 2018 album. Yeah, 2018, their last.
Correct. Skepticism put out a record, just like a year or two ago, also, and I think Funeral is still putting records out as well, which is that's a pretty good longevity to everything that we've got up there.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah.
Thurgotten doesn't haven't put out any records, but
no, Thurgotten disappeared, and some of the other ones we'll talk about. You know, kind of were quick in and outs. And then so we've got 4 on our essential early. We've got 4 on our essential early list. Normally we try and do five essential early, 5 essential modern, and the 1 legend.
I think that first Worship record, in my opinion, of course, but I think that first Worship record could go up there too. That was in ’99. You said that's
2007. I mean, the demo. The demo was in '99.
Is that categorized as a demo usually? Because I in my head that was their first record, but I suppose that could just be a demo.
Yeah, I think it's technically counts as a demo. Yeah, the last tape before Doomsday. I mean,
it does sound like a demo, to be fair.
You're right, you know,
No
and I mean it's a little difficult to put in the list because the file photo we have on hand here is a photo of a cassette on a table, which also brings big demo vibes, I would say.
Right, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
We played at Roadburn a couple years ago, and they performed that album from start to finish. Really? It was right when we finished our set, they went on immediately, and when we finished, we had to go do this we had to go talk to some folks about something. Long story. But we finished that conversation.
Ooh, is this? Could we get some inside information?
Oh, it was just we had an interview sort of thing. That was just set up. And they were kind of hey, you're done with the set. Let's go have this interview thing. And it was okay. And we finished the interview, and I ran to the stage to try to catch Worship, and I was like, damn it, they just finished. What can you do?
The harsh realities of being a Funeral Doom fan while also a essential Funeral Doom maker.
Yeah, you can't catch Worship every time, which sucks because Worship fucking rules.
Dandy Bubbles thought it was Daniel DK for a moment. You and our resident shredder, Mr. Daniel DK, who I don't believe you guys have met. You do look very similar. You are very similar looking men. Here, let's get a file photo up of here. I can toss it. We'll toss it in the in the window. We can get a file photo up of Mr. Daniel DK for you to. You both have very luscious curls. Is I think what's getting the Daniel DK. Let's just Google him, baby. Let's just Google him. But that could be, you know, definitely bring in some. Oh, wrong window. Definitely bring in some younger brother vibes to you. Here we go. File photo of Mr. Daniel DK. Look at that. That's very. These could be you a couple years ago, certainly.
Daniel, I gotta say, you're a handsome guy.
Handsome fellow, Mr. Daniel DK. Yeah. Yeah, that's our resident guitar god at Banger. You know, also plays in historic. Now plays in the historic speed metal band out of Canada, Exciter. So.
Fuck yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, he's actually he can't be here because he's dealing with some stuff to get on a plane to then go fly and play an Exciter gig this weekend.
That's fucking awesome.
He's a man. Yeah, man, all across the country.
So we need one more Essential Early album, is that right?
We need one more Essential Early album, but we don't need to necessarily. We could maybe talk about two, and then we could maybe put it up as a vote in the chat.
Sure.
You know, the chat loves to vote. We love to have them. We love to have them have their say. Yeah, it's hard to because, like, I guess maybe we could potentially, like, when are we shifting it with Funeral Doom? When are we shifting from early to modern? Is the question, because it's definitely one of the younger genres we've covered in this.
Yeah, and that's a tough one because there's so many records that in my head are like pillars of what we would all think of when we say Funeral Doom in 2022, but some of those some of those came out in the 2000s. Like I would say Doom by Worship is, and I would also say last tape before Doomsday, but or Mournful Congregation. Like I would think that like those two set the stage for a lot of bands that are doing similar things now. That would be classified in such the category. But yeah, I don't know if they would be considered essential early as much as essential.
Well, I mean, we don't have to. This isn't set in stone. You know, we don't have to decide early and then move on to modern. We can start talking about modern. CEO of Gaming asking, what about Disembowelment? Maybe more Death Doom, though. That's a great band that we could potentially put in the proto category. That is a Death Doom band, but that definitely you can kind of hear some of the sounds that some early Funeral Doom artists might have picked up on and kind of gotten some of the vibes. Thinking, oh yeah, I could make a record that
has some carryover there, but with Skepticism, I wouldn't say Skepticism and Disembowelment really sound very much alike at all.
Yeah,
Thurgothing definitely.
Yeah.
Well, when did that Disembowelment full length come out? I can look these up too. I don't know why I'm asking you to do it all.
Hey, no, that's what I'm here for. This is my job. Hey, how dare you try and take my job? Yeah. So I mean, you have the 1993 is when Transcendence into the Peripheral came out, but you have the first demo coming out in 1990. But that's obviously a little more on the jank side. You've got an EP in '92 in Dusk. But yeah, the album. But that was one that Disembowelment's one that came out and then kind of really. That's another one of those bands where you kind of look back and you go, oh, wow, you can hear all these elements of where people pulled from and stuff. And then you talk to people and you like talk to Disembowelment and they're like, our album didn't exist until like 2005. It came out when it did, but no one could access it. We were in Australia. No one heard of us. We broke up and then we were gone, you know?
Yeah. I wonder if like, because that Dusk EP is pretty fucking cool still. I wonder if the guys in Thurgothing had ever been exposed to that. I mean,
yeah, it's like an interesting question because you're like, how, like, you think about now and you go, everything is so much easier to make a Ripple now. But like then that a guy would have had to import an EP into Finland or like tape traded his way to, someone mailed him a bootleg of a bootleg.
Yeah, like a 10th generation cassette that just sounds like
yeah, just like I think there's a really cool album in here maybe, or maybe it's someone's washing machine. Drier? I'm not quite sure,
Drier.
but it could be. Dude, that disembowelment was released on Relapse originally. I know, but I'm just saying, like, just because an album was released on Relapse doesn't mean, that album is famous for kind of same with Winter, just like albums that got released and their kind of the affection for them was a more of a slow burn, right? Just because something's released on a big label. Everybody's got magical views of what getting an album released by Relapse in 1995 does for your career, whatever, but does not necessarily make a. And we were talking about that the EP as well, getting that because that you'd kind of have to be a little earlier for that to.
Was that EP on Relapse as well, or was that a?
I think that was just like a random EP kind of put out, but I might be wrong. The EP. Oh no, the EP was on Relapse as well.
Okay. Yeah, but I don't think Relapse was anything resembling what it is today back then. I mean, I remember getting those Contamination CD samplers in the 90s, and I mean, it was like the bands that they were putting out back then were, that was pre-Mastodon Relapse. They were definitely not putting out big name things. I don't know. They were still putting out good fucking records.
Yeah. CEO Gaming, I don't know, heard crazier things. Barrett was influenced by Sarcophago way earlier, but I'd say both those bands are bigger than any of the bands we're talking about, right?
Sarcophagos, that's an interesting poll.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, we can start kind of talking a little bit outside of getting kind of close to modern. We're tiptoeing around it, but yeah, should probably. I mean, the chat probably wants us to talk about Mournful Congregation. They've come up a bit for both us and since we're talking about modern, I saw Desmond by Lost in the list, but I want to say that Horizonless has an emotional weight atmosphere that is unmatched by anything else they've released. If Bellwitch didn't exist, I would have a Lost tattoo. The fate of Horizonless being released the same year as Mirror Reaper is very unfortunate, as it was one of the best Funeral Doom records ever made. One of, and there.
That's a great record.
That is a great record. But Jesus Christ, you guys love getting way ahead. Getting way ahead.
Billy Anderson recorded that as well. He also recorded Mirror Reaper.
Oh,
he did Horizon just a little bit earlier in the year, I believe.
Oh, damn. That's hey, Harry, did you know that? Cool fact for you. Learning. I was waiting for so long to type that out. Yeah, Harry, you're right. I'll give it to you. You exercised self-restraint for as long as you possibly could, and I respect that. So yeah, Mournful. I think we should probably at this point in the conversation, we need to mention Mournful Congregation. I need to find their fucking. Need to look. There we go. Another album cover that's very hard to make out small because there's almost nothing on it, besides that great logo, typeface, whatever you want to call it. Very subtle. Mournful Congregation. Just a little flourishes. Kind of nice. Hello from Houston. Hey, John Blake. Hey, thanks for coming out. Pain X Fist. It's really nice that Banger decided to do a special stream just for Harry. Honestly, yeah, this was actually his Make-A-Wish. I'm sorry to report that Harry's not doing so well. He's got a bad case of Bellwitch fever.
Oh, that joke was kind of hairy.
Hey. There we go. Happy birthday, Harry. Yeah, Harry, your birthday's officially been reside to May 11th. That's worse than COVID. Yeah, you can't get rid of it. So Mournful Congregation being kind of, in my head, they're kind of like the band that's sort of, they may be working early, they may be working modern, because like in my head they kind of like sort of like kick off the modern era. And if I'm talking about Funeral Doom with someone that doesn't know what Funeral Doom is or doesn't listen to Funeral Doom, if I had to guess a band, like the earliest band they'd know, I'd probably say like, oh, you've heard of Mournful Congregation, right? They go, yeah. And I go, oh, that's Funeral Doom. And they'd go, oh, okay. All right. So we kind of, maybe, hey, there's the poll. Hey, we can poll the chat. if we think mournful congregation is early or early or modern, and you've been talking about how you're a fan. You've teased it a little bit. Why don't you give your thoughts on mournful congregation while I'm setting up this poll?
As for me,
You, yes.
yeah, a Merfolk congregation, they're fucking great. We played with them. I was in a band called Samothrace years ago, and we played. I think it was their first U.S. show. It was early on, I think, one of the first ones in Seattle, and I was so stoked to play that. And Bellwitch was just starting out then, and there wasn't like room on the bill. And I was like, damn it! But I still got to play it anyways, which was cool. But yeah, then we ran into each other. We played a show in a festival in Copenhagen called Heavy Days in Doomtown, which was a fucking cool festival, and that was great. And I don't know, we run into each other a lot over the years, which has been really cool. I mean, I think they're one of the fucking best bands out there. Like the whole three guitar thing is so cool, and all the wild ass harmonies they do, and it becomes such a thick, like the melody is so thick sometimes that it's just
Yeah.
it's so great. It's so cool, and they incorporate like I think they can be. So I think something that I really like about Funeral Doom is sometimes I feel like I have to pay attention when I'm listening to be like, what's going on here? Maybe there's not a lot of like notes flying in every direction, but there's like this really complex sort of emotional, I don't know, these complex emotions being conveyed. And I think that all the albums we have in Essential Early all have that. And it's not necessarily easy listening. It's complicated. It's tough to grab onto, and like you have to kind of think about it a little bit and be like, what is that? And I think Mournful Congregation does that in the coolest ways, and they infuse with those guitar melodies. It makes it just fucking beautiful sometimes. It just it you can kind of get taken away in so many directions listening to a Mournful Congregation record. Like
Yeah.
there's the death metal elements, of course, but it can go like that song. I think the June Frost on the June Frost, where it's just an instrumental um, guitar passage, just the fucking coolest thing.
And hey, we had King saying, "Gotta hop off the chat." Shout out to Dylan for that Mirror Reaper album. Absolutely got him into Funeral Doom. So you're doing the Lord's work. And yeah, Mournful Congregation. I mean, the guitars are there's such a great tone. You know, there's bands where you're like, oh man, you're like jealous of their tone. You're like, damn, I feel like, you know, those bands, you know, where you feel like they could just strum openly, and they've like crafted such a tone.
Sure,
One of those bands
sure.
where you really start to think like, oh man, when you go like, ah, what's with all these pedal boards and the amps? Okay, and then you hear a band where just the guitar just clicks immediately, and you're like, oh man, they really crafted something there by really caring about kind of every link in that chain. And then the other thing, yeah, where you're talking about taking your attention, is it's one of the first bands where I felt really like, where you're like hanging on the drum almost, where it's like you're waiting for that next drum beat, and you're like kind of like anticipating it, and it's like you're like, if you know, if you're catching them live, you might catching yourself like nodding your head too early because they're like keeping you waiting for so long, and there's this like anticipation building with you.
Yeah, which is a complicated thing to pull off, I think, especially for the drummers.
Yeah,
Like you can't play that to a metronome.
yeah.
It's like you have to unlearn like a drummer is always taught you have to stay on beat, don't speed
Yeah.
up, don't slow down, stay right on beat. But to do that, it's like you have to get off beat, you have to intentionally uh, play slower
Yeah.
which is a fucking hard thing to do. And yeah, they're the kings of that, and they're not like going back to the guitar conversation. They're not like none of them play with a million pedals or a million like fancy boutique amps. That's again like they're just fucking good musicians, and they just play very well. Like they hit the fucking note right. They know exactly what they're trying to go for, and they all work together. It's like an orchestra. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm a fan, in case it's not obvious.
Yeah, we have a mournful congregation. I'm a mournful congregation fan. I celebrate the guy's entire catalog, but it might be twice as difficult for you sharing the same name as mournful congregation. Funky Pico, such evil. All this talk about these great albums makes me want to listen to them immediately, but I've got this stream to listen to as well. I mean, this is a thing where whenever I'm like prepping for these streams, because I mean, I've mostly just lined up my favorite genres, like that I haven't really gotten a chance to talk to off the top. And you know, you're listening to like an album, and you want to like, because you're thinking about all of them at the same time, you want to like cut off, and you're like, I want to listen to that other album right now, but I want to still be listening to that album. Can I listen to 2 albums at the same time? Like just put them slightly off, so when mournful congregation's not playing something, another band is slowly hitting a drum.
That's some trippy shit.
Yeah, man.
I don't have enough peyote in my cup for that. That's far out there.
Yeah.
It's like that. Like Neurosis did that, where they had the Tribes of Neurot record that was supposed to play simultaneously with the Times of Grace record, and I don't know if any of you all are familiar with that, but it's the fucking coolest thing. Where you like put it on 2 different stereos in different parts of the house, and maybe you while it's happening, and like this weird shit starts happening on the Tribes of Neurot record. We're like, whoa, like where did that come from? It's really cool. A collection of bands have done that over the years, but that's the one that I'm most familiar with. I think Flaming Lips did it to some extent. I don't know. I digress. I'm leading us in the wrong direction.
Hey, we love a digression. Boris did something similar with Mabuta no Ura, I think. Funky Pico. Yeah. Boris, another one of those bands that's like if you were on like Jeopardy or like a very specific Jeopardy, and you were like, shoot, I don't know the answer to this, but they were like, this band created 2 albums that you was supposed to play simultaneously, and if like you were like, shit, I don't know, like Boris would be like the best guess answer. You're like, I don't know, but probably Boris, probably Flaming Lips, yeah.
Boris fucking rules.
Yeah. Boris rules. Neurosis rules. Talking about some bands that rule. Yeah, certainly not a casual thing you do. You certainly got to have some ability under the old belt if you're going to try and take a swing at that.
I'm doing like a little collaboration thing. It hasn't finished yet, but it's me and.
Ooh, juicy news! You listening, Harry?
Aiden from Naja, Colin from Amin Ra, and Atsuo from Boris. And it's like we've got these like 4 songs, and they're each like 20 minutes long, and it's kind of noisy. It's like kind of Neurosis-y at times, and it's wild shit. And the 4 of us are talking about it. We're like, yeah, this is weird stuff, but it's cool. And Atsuo is fucking awesome. Like he sent the drum tracks over, and that day I was just like, this just went from like 0 to 60, just like boom, it got so cool. Boris fucking rules. That was my point.
Yeah. So is this something that's gonna see the light of day? What's the plan? Is there a plan with it?
Yeah, it'll see the light. I'm not sure when it'll be finished. There's a lot of moving parts on it, but someday it'll see the light of day. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe this year. Maybe it'll be next year.
Hey, all right. You love getting a juicy bit of news to add to these streams. That's good. Appreciate that. Thank you, sir. But yeah, back to the task at hand. Hey, we've gotten some follows rolling in. Macumus, Music Mad, Straight Jacket, Lumberjacker, John Blake. Thanks for these fresh rounds of follows. Thanks for coming out and catching us. Yeah, now we're kind of getting into the modern era. We can start getting some bands that one that I'm surprised no one's mentioned yet, because this is one of the records that I think has kind of popped off in that was kind of one of the ones that I think breached the main one of the first, besides like Mournful Congregation, to kind of start breaching the like mainstream, and by mainstream I obviously mean a very narrow stream of metalheads, but like a slightly less narrow stream of metalheads than what we're talking about. Evoken, yeah, we talked about Evoken earlier. But I would say a very heavy record, a record I really like, and I think a lot of people are a fan of it. I'm surprised, like I said, hasn't been mentioned yet. Is Ahab there? Is kind of what I thought was a very the Call of the Wretched Sea, 2006 out of Germany, was one of the it's a pretty big record, and it's a pretty cool record because it's like really heavy. It's like a super. Bro, that's the cover for Mastodon Leviathan.
Not so different.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's a very similar cover, very similar vibe, in that it is, of course, one of in the hallowed halls of metal albums about Moby Dick. I mean, and for some reason, I mean, it seems like the people that choose to make their album about Moby Dick, it's like there's a weight that comes with that. It's like there's a responsibility that you've got to, like, you better do a good job. This better be a genre-defining album, otherwise, because this is, Mastodon and Ahab wrote two albums that are pretty heavy and pretty big in the genre, I would think. Ahab, do you have any thoughts on Ahab?
Ahab fucking rules. That record fucking rules, and the one right after it, Divinity of Oceans, fucking rules too. Like, Ahab kicks fucking ass. I've never seen him live. I would love to someday. Before I die, I have to see Ahab live. Yeah, they're great. I remember I read Moby Dick years ago, and I was just like, "Oh, this is the coolest book ever!" Like these like huge, like epic proportions of everything, and there's good versus evil, and there's man versus nature, and all this wild shit. I remember I was like, "I'm going to make a fucking record about Moby Dick someday." Like, what is cooler than fucking Moby Dick? And then it was like right when I was like thinking about that, and like just being a dork, Leviathan by Mastodon came out. I was like, fuck. Fucking guy. Like, yeah, what a good idea. And that's a good record too.
Yeah.
And then, like, I don't know, it was years later, when I first heard Ahab, it was like, holy fuck, this is so much cooler, and like so much more like specifically Moby Dick. And, Ahab fucking rules. Funny thing, the old drummer from Bellwitch, Adrian, he and I, we used to listen to Ahab all the time. We were like, this is so awesome. And he had a band called Ahab when he was in high school. But he, just to be a goof, he'd be like, yeah, they stole the name from me.
That's great.
And there's probably been a billion bands that had the name Ahab over the years.
Yeah.
It's a fucking awesome name, but there's only one Ahab.
There is only one Ahab. Yeah, they definitely. It's one of those things. It's like a number in sports where it's like, all right, well, if they kind of close that door. If you're picking 23, you're gonna kind of look like a jackass.
Sure.
And we've got Captain Ahab in the chat. Did someone call? Hell yeah! How are you, Captain Ahab? What are your feelings about Ahab? Can't believe the Germans stole the name. Yeah, the Germans will take what they want.
Well, that's a whale of an opinion.
Hey, there we go. Ooh, it's here.
Harpoons.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
We got some groaners. We got some groaners in the house for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, don't let me sail away with that joke, so we can continue on course.
Jesus. And then, hey, this is something I made yesterday. And I was waiting to deploy. It's the BangerTV channel. Of course, we've got BangerTV brought to us by Mr. Sam Dunn, who's a massive Mastodon fan. I'm a big Mastodon fan as well. So create a little emote that's perfectly deployed now. We've got a little. If you're subscribed to the channel, if you're a subscriber, you get access to our emotes. We got the Mastodon. We got the Mastodon whale right there for your use in chat, splashing around. And I don't know, maybe we got some more new emotes coming. Thanks to all you guys for subscribing. Gives us all these cool emote slots where we can put all kinds of silly things in the chat. And we can start filling it up. But yeah, so Ahab. All right, well, you know, I've been speaking of Ahab, I've been steering this ship, but modern. Hey, there you go.
There. Now we're talking.
Yay. So what's a modern band that you think? I mean, we've talked about you've been itching to talk about Worship, and we didn't quite fully lock into Worship, or maybe another kind of modern band. You know, you think of kind of more of the modern era of Funeral Doom that we haven't talked about enough.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if Worship is like teetering the line between early and modern, I'd say they should be very represented in modern. And like last album before Doomsday is fucking great. I think Doom, or should I emphasize that?
Doom. Love that extra.
Hits me like harder, but that's not to say that it's a better record. I think it just it seems more I don't know, maybe emotionally developed or emotionally destructive, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do have the pretty kind of like crazy story about the band where, you know, if for those in the chat that don't know, Worship started as a band and they were around for a while before they got to put out their first record because while in Canada of all places, their drummer committed suicide, and they kind of were like, all right. We're not gonna be a band anymore. And then I believe they got together for like a reunion show for him or something, or like dedicated something to him. And they kind of realized they have this album that they kind of wanted to get out there, and they, you know, had been partially written with him, partially written with their new drummer, that they kind of like managed to kind of come out, finish, and it was Doom with 3 O's.
That's a fucking great record.
Yeah,
like just from start to finish, it's just, you know, get you by the you can't turn that off once it's on. It's just too fucking good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, again, one of those records that's really heavy, really brutal, and you know, kind of lacking in one of the elements that a lot of Funeral Doom has, where there's not really like a goofiness or a silliness. A lot of the Funeral Doom albums we've talked about has a part you can like little chuckle about in like a way where you're enjoying the record, but you're like, that's a little silly. I like that. That's a little silly. This is not a record with a silly moment. This is definitely a heavy record. CEO Gaming says Worship goes to early. I mean, we could argue that this potentially could be an earlier record because it was kind of being crafted in the early days and only really came out late because of obviously some band related tragedy. So there is that. We could put it to a poll. We could put it to a poll in the chat. Where does Worship fit? Question mark. Early?
I would personally say that last album before Doomsday. Like, I never know how to say that because I think each format has a different name. Like, there's the last cassette before Doomsday, where there's the last CD. I think there's a vinyl. I don't know. I don't own any of the three. Yeah,
I think those are probably like Discog wallet punishers, I imagine.
Yeah. But I mean, I personally would say that's an early. Essential early. I mean, you are. Hey, who are we gonna? Your opinion. Out of anyone here, your opinion is definitely the most expert. No. You. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look. Let's see. I'm kind of curious. Let's head over to Discogs and just take a look. How much, if we wanted to buy a copy today, would it be expensive? Is it brutal? I don't want a CD. Nobody wants a CD. Brutal. Nobody wants a CD. How do I change? How do I get rid of? I don't want all versions. CDs aren't so bad.
I don't want any physical representations of digital media. Give me. So, yeah, you're looking at. It's not nice. We've got. Is this an original cassette? Hand numbered to 300 copies. 19 of 300 is on Discogs of the original cassette. Or is it the original cassette? Weird Truth.
How much is it?
It is 360 euros.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an expensive cassette tape.
Yeah, I mean, if you're grabbing a CD, of course, CDs are never expensive. The LP, we're looking at 70 euros, 80 euros for definitely getting up there. I guess we could probably, you know what, last vinyl before Doomsday, I can probably get a nice thumbnail of, because that's definitely one of the problems of this record when you're trying to. This is
Find the format to find the picture. Totally. Yeah.
yeah.
They all have a different name.
Yeah. Oh God.
I'm not even sure how to refer to it as we're talking. I guess the last album before Doomsday.
Yeah, that has a cleanness to it, certainly.
Which is probably not the name of the record, however. I don't think there's any format that has that.
All right, so we're feeling this we're feeling this in the early. We're feeling this in the early. All right, we've got.
Is that what the poll's saying?
That's what the poll's saying, and we can here. Let's get off the tier list for a second while I go and upload a thumbnail. So yeah, that's gonna go in early. So we might have to, we can keep working and ticking away, but it looks like we might have to bump something from the old early. There is there another. So that maybe turned out to be early. I asked you for a modern band. You didn't give me one. I asked you for a modern band. Damn it, you gave me an early one. What's a modern Death Doom band that you can, Aaron? If Worship goes up as essential early, then so should Ahab. Ahab came out a year earlier, I think. Well, that is true, but the essential early that we're picking is the last whatever the hell. Last something before Doomsday is the thumbnail I put.
Call of the Wretched Sea come out? Call of the Wretched Sea is the first Ahab album, is that right?
Yeah. Call of the Wretched Sea is the first Ahab album that came out in 2004? 2006. Which I feel like once we're getting to 2006, we're getting pretty modern. Yeah, last whatever before Doomsday came out in 1999. So that's where we can put it in the early because Worship Doom came out in 2007. So yeah, we're getting a little more modern there.
What year did Monad of Creation came out in?
2005. 2005. It's a surprisingly late entry considering how early and formative it feels.
They've got that the EP that came out before that. However, Mournful Congregation that is has an EP that came out before that, I think, which has they still play one of those songs live. I can't remember the name of it. I'm just thinking of if we had to pull something off the essential early.
I mean, we could potentially. I mean, Evoken is up there. That could be taken down, and because there's, I mean, Evoken is a band that can kind of really crop up in any era as having an important album, an essential album. I mean, they what was the one in 2005? Yeah, Antithesis of Light is another great one, and like I said, the one that just came out a couple of years ago is also really solid. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a bad record. I think every Evoking record fucking rules.
Harry, you'd vote for Mournful Congregation go modern? Well, Mournful Congregation isn't early because we put it to a vote, and that's where you put it. The chat. We're voting left and right. We're voting left and right. Hey, well, we can have a you know what? I'm gonna.
Did you say he voting?
He voting. We voting. We voting. We voting.
Evoking.
I'm gonna go with we voting if you want to pull that off.
Okay.
And hey, if you have some disagreements in the chat, I just deployed 2 new emotes. Look at that. Look what he's doing. 2 new emotes in the chat. Get your thoughts on them. Those'll boo. This is Hack. Get out of here. Could 2000 be the year to separate early and modern? Yeah, that's kind of the way it's naturally sort of forming. Because you kind of just have a drop-off, with the exception of you get Pantheist and Nort releasing albums in 2003, and you kind of have a bit of a gulf between, like an Esoteric album coming out in 1999, and then, not a lot of albums we'd talk about until for a couple of years, surprisingly, at least in my list. But, all right, well, look. look, we're getting low on time, so I think an album that we can just toss in there. There'll be yeah. So there's some new emotes in the chat. We've got a thumbs up and a thumbs down. I did it with horns out though. That's my hand, so don't use it for anything nefarious. But you can now also, if you disagree with something, you can give a vote with the old horns thumbs up or horns thumbs down.
I think that early category also, I don't, if we have to take one out, we have to take one out. Like, rules are rules. But I think a cool thing about that list is each band in there kind of has their own specific style. That there are plenty of bands nowadays that would be kind of like, could kind of fit into their own category of, this would be more of a worship type funeral doom, or this could be more of a funeral type funeral doom, or although you still can't say anything about skepticism because no one sounds like skepticism.
The theme of this is that no one sounds like skepticism. Early would have to be bands like Thor's Hammer, Burning Witch, Asunder. Obviously West Coaster, that's late 90s.
Was Asunder late 90s? Asunder's fucking great. Their bass player Sal just did sound for us on the West Coast tour that Ian Bow did.
Well, there you go. There's some cool lore. There's some cool lore. If we're short on time, let's just put okay. I always try and leave some time for this. Try and get it not too early in the thing, but we do have to. We got there's no hard out, but yeah, we should get close to, so we've just got to talk about Mirror Reaper. We've got to talk about Mirror Reaper every stream we've done. We've basically had to embarrass our guest by lavishing praise on them about their album, because everything we've done, every guest we've had for their thing, they've released a definitive album in the genre. So yeah, I don't think anyone in the chat, you've got Harry, who's your super fan, JM Mage. If we're short on time, just put Monotony Fields and Mirror Reaper in Modern as the two best albums in the genre. Doubt there is much disagreement there.
Fucking awesome. Man, we played with them in.
Look, he's trying to weasel out of it. He's trying to weasel out of our compliments. Do it though. Let's hear about it. Let's hear about it.
About Shape of Despair. More.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it. What's your Shape of Despair story? Bust it out.
What was it? It was a Netherlands Death Fest. I think it was in Rotterdam, I think. But Shape of Despair headlined, and it was just there's if you could think about the 5 shows in your life where you just kind of feel like you just leave your body and you're like, whoa, what just happened? That was some kind of a religious experience. I wasn't even on drugs, or maybe you were on drugs. I don't know. Maybe I was on drugs.
That Peyote Cup. That coming back to the Peyote Cup. And Jesus Christ, Nick Nocturnal, banger pal, Nick Nocturnal, champion Nick Nocturnal, rating us with 279 people coming into the stream. Very kind, nice to see ya. I hope everybody in our chat is following Nick there. He's of course a banger pal. You've seen him in banger stuff before, because he is of course from Shredders of Metal. But I mean, at this point, he is just of Nick Nocturnal. Dude's a champion. Dude's massive. Dude's Twitch stream is one of the best places on Twitch. So make sure you're following. He does all kinds of fun stuff, whether it's music related or silliness related.
As someone else said earlier, it's the Twitch stream from the heavens.
Twitch stream from the heavens. Yes, we're doing the Twitch stream from the heavens. Boo, boo, boo. But yeah, it's definitely been a very aggressively punny stream. And yeah, you just came in at the point where we have Dylan Desmond of Bellwitch here, and we're talking about essential funeral doom albums. So the saddest stream for you to rate into, definitely the most somber. But we're being silly, we're being goofy, and now we have to embarrass this guy by talking about an album he made that is crazy. It's crazy. It seems It's the, hey, Metal Multiball, thanks for the 100 bits. Following Nick Nocturnal now? Hell yeah, love to hear it. Harry saying, I know he is there, but Mirror Reaper is the greatest album of all time. I said Lost Horizonless had an emotional weight. Mirror Reaper is on a whole other level of atmosphere. It is the only album I have shed tears to. Captain Ahab, Mirror Reaper is the most transcendent listening experience I've had. I've had listening to Joy. Oh, so he's saying it's similar to listening to Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures. I know no greater compliment.
Thank you.
So yeah, I mean, this is a crazy album because essentially it's one song, right? You know, you divide it in two for like the vinyl, but it's one song. It's Funeral Doom, very slow. It's very weird, and this album, like, I mean, when I've been saying, you know, mainstream success in this, there's always been a quotation on it, but this is an album that kind of crossed over and got some waves even outside of the metal world, which was, you know, of the albums you think is gonna do it. I mean, I've been a Bell Witch fan for a long time, and you know, your records were always really celebrated in, of course, the, you know, niche metal community that we're all sitting in right now. But Bell Witch, Mirror Reaper really kind of, yeah, like had a effect on the music world outside of just kind of the corner of metal that we're talking about. Funky Pico, Mirror Reaper is an album I reserve as a specific listening experience that only a few others like Boris Flood albums I drop everything to listen to. Quarry Ritual, hearing parts of Mirror Reaper live in Melbourne, Australia blew me away. Love, love, love.
That Melbourne show was really cool with Conan and Whitehorse.
Oh, that does sound like a cool show.
That person talking about?
Is that is that the Melbourne Mirror? I mean, you'd know. You played.
I guess I was there. Oh, that was a fucking cool show, though. That venue was awesome.
Yeah, that's a crazy show. Godzillers. Yeah, I remember when it came out, I had a really bad bout of depression. I put Mirror Reaper on my headphones and just wallowed in sadness before going to bed. Hey, that's, you know, feeling things is good, not repressing emotions, kind of, you know, embracing your emotions, coming to terms with them can be helpful to kind of work through them. You know, emotions, feelings, a lot of times it's like you know, your mind has to digest them. You know, if you don't let your mind kind of chomp away at them, sometimes it can you know, that can be bad. So, you know, if an album takes you to a sad place, even, you know, it can certainly be a helpful way of working through it. And yeah, I mean, it just the weirdest album to have, like my mom has a copy of Mirror Reaper.
Whoa, really?
My mom likes Mirror Reaper. Yeah.
Nice.
She has a vinyl copy, and she listens to it on her turntable. She's my mother. She's I won't say her age, because if she's listening, which she sometimes does, and I said her age, she'd fucking murder me. But I'll just say I'm 36, and she didn't get like knocked up as a teenager or anything. So yeah, she really likes Mirror Reaper. So that it's crazy to think, you know, again, just like a Funeral Doom album kind of really crossing over like that. It really let's get some real guests on, like Blaine's mom. Yep, you know. Yeah. Get her.
That was an interesting thing when that record came out, though. Like Jesse and I were like making no shortage of jokes, and Billy, the engineer, recorded it. We were all like in there just joking about, like, yeah, no one's ever gonna listen to this. And I mean, apparently, you know, a lot of people listen to it, which is really fucking cool. Like, it's really fucking cool how many people listen to it.
Yeah, I love your record.
That was totally unexpected.
A lot of people listen to it. Yeah. Craig coming in, loved by moms and Rolling Stone. Yeah, great point. Loved by Rolling Stone magazine. Yeah, did you expect to see Mirror Reaper in Rolling Stone magazine?
Fuck no, that was. I told my mom about that when it came out. I was like, Mom, guess what? You read my record, and she was like, the long one. I was like, I don't know.
Hey, Aaron, 1986, saying, I love Mirror Reaper as much as everyone, but the coolest thing for me is going through the early Bell Witch albums and hearing the musical development. Mirror Reaper was my first time hearing Bell Witch. Yeah, I mean, that's a great, I mean, it's funny with the way we use certain things we use with moms, like the metric for success is that my mom listened to it, and your metric for success with your mother is like, it's in Rolling Stone. You can understand these words that I'm saying.
Well, we did it was I don't remember what the magazine was. It was like maybe Revolver or something, where they were like taking new records that had just been released and they're giving them to like celebrity type people and saying, listen to this and tell us what you think. And it was this particular one gave it to like a professional wrestler.
Oh yeah.
And to Boy George. And they're like, check this out. And this was for Four Phantoms, which is the album that came out before Mirror Reaper.
Yeah.
And Boy George liked Four Phantoms a whole lot. And I think that's when it really clicked with my mom. She was like, oh, I love Boy George. I'm like, Mom, Boy George likes the record that I made. She was like, okay, I can dig this then. Or, you know.
Love it. And hey, love JD gifting us up to Papa Emeritus. Thanks so much. And Metal Girl for the follow. Funky Pico. Oh, I also got to thank Blaine for getting me to buy Mirror Reaper CD before even listening to the album. That review is my favorite of yours. Very kind. I mean, that's how we started talking. I mean, I went to it was shortly after the record came out. You were playing in Toronto at RIP, one of the great venues in Toronto's history, Coalition, which isn't there anymore.
No, that place was awesome.
Yeah. And after the show, I came up and I was like, hey, I don't know if you guys, it was like, hi, and you guys were like, hi, and I was like, so I don't know if you guys saw, but I reviewed your record, and then I can't, whether it was you or Jesse, went, hey, it's the guy. It's like, it's like, what? And then I looked back, it was like, hey, it's the guy. And it was like, oh shit. And then a slightly embarrassing thing I did was you were like I think it was like Jesse. It was like, hey, thanks so much. That review was really great. We loved it. We watched it in the van. It was really funny. Do you want something from the merch booth? And Jackie had wanted the hoodie, and I was like, oh, there's the hoodie, and he was like, oh, that's the most I realized after I said it, it was like the most expensive thing at the merch booth, and I was like, and then he was kind of like, he kind of went like, oh, and I was like, I'm sorry, I just bought everything else already. And honestly, I had bought everything else. So it was like, oh, okay, he's not a cheap piece of shit. It's just the one thing he doesn't have. But I was like, oh no, I said the hoodie. What's wrong with you, Blake? Just get a second t-shirt of the same one.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, and then it's become a theme. Yeah, Deadpan pointing out, Swallow the Sun songs from the North album count as Funeral Doom. That's a little bit more still in the Death Doom category, I'd say, Swallow the Sun, but definitely really Funeral Doom adjacent, certainly. Yeah, that's a...
They definitely have moments where it's kind of like that. That's definitely Funeral Doom. In my personal opinion, I think Swallow the Sun, spends more time in the kind of the Peaceville 3 sort of Death Doom world than they do in the Funeral Doom. But I mean, I don't know. I could be convinced otherwise through a lengthy conversation.
I could, yeah. Okay, but man, I can't believe it. It's almost 2:30. So we got some albums to start putting up here. We gotta lock this in. So I mean, one that came up already. It's come up a couple times. It was mentioned in the same breaths as Mirror Reaper. So certainly a heavy one to mention is Monotony Fields. Of course, the Shape of Despair album, Shape of Despair. Again with the very. Oh, one last thing about Mirror Reaper. Do you see? Because it seems like you guys, obviously it's not like you discovered him as an artist or blah, 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 but you guys really did seem to, the Lewandowski, you really seem to crack that, you cracked open that Pandora's box, and now it's like every month he's like doing like 3 covers.
Which is so cool. Like, so we wrote him, we just wrote him an email, and we were like, hey, like, you make really cool art. Like, would you do a record cover for us, and he wrote back, and we didn't have a lot of back and forth. He was just like, "Yeah, I've always wanted to do a record cover. I would love to. Like, what's the record about?" We were kind of like, gave him like, I think it was like a 2 or 3 paragraph little explanation of what we were going for, and maybe like some themes that we were looking for, which was easy because the themes that he was like already using in all of his other work, it was like, okay, this is perfect. Like, we're in the same wheelhouse already. So we weren't, we weren't sending him in any direction. He wasn't already going in without us. And there was a particular piece that he had done beforehand, which was like a Reaper holding a mirror, and we are like, that one's really fucking cool, like something in that realm, because we're kind of like, we're dealing with subject matter that's kind of the same, in the same wheelhouse as that painting he already done. And yeah, he was like, okay, I'll get back to you a little bit. And like a month went by, and all of a sudden we got this email. And Jesse and I were roommates at the time, and we like opened it up, and we were both like, "Whoa, fucking cool!"
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't know, it was humbling. It was like, "Whoa, this is fucking awesome." To just, I don't know, like the feeling of like we're about to put out a record, which is fucking cool enough as it is, but then it's gonna have that on the cover.
I know, right?
Well, that's a whole other fucking world. And yeah, and it's so cool that he's gotten so much. Like, he's gotten a lot of attention from that, and a lot of folks are hitting him up, and that's great.
Yeah.
Like, I can think of nothing cooler than that. And he's like a really fucking nice guy. And I don't know. I mean, I haven't met him in person, but in our email exchanges, he's just like wonderful. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those things where I mean, when you are making something, and your making thing includes something that someone's made, and then you see that person like making more things because you included them in the thing you made, it's like, it's like you feel so nice and warm, and it's like it feels like such a community, and you're helping. You're like, oh, I'm helping. It's on a much more minor scale. You have people in the chat being like, oh, the first time I heard Mirror Reaper was because of the review, and I'm like, I didn't make Mirror Reaper. I had nothing to do with the creation of Mirror Reaper, but kind of like getting to not walk up to people's door, knock like a pizza guy, and hand it to them feels really really nice, certainly.
Yeah, that's a perfect parallel.
Yeah, and you do get, I mean, it is kind of interesting because you do see him get a lot of work, but it's funny because a lot of the bands you see, like, you can kind of tell the difference between, like, you sent him an email and it was based on a painting, but he made something for you because it really, like, the album and that thing goes so hand in hand, whereas now you see a lot of albums where people have just, like, bought one of his paintings to put on, and you're like, it's just a nice cover, and, like, either way, it's sick. I mean, obviously not everybody can have the time or money to be, like, getting custom made artwork for their cover, but it's cool to see, like, when someone like something like Mirror Reaper, you go like, oh yeah, this was made for this, and then you can see someone else where you're like, okay, they're trying to tell me what's on the inside with using this painting of this guy that's sweet that they bought. I respect that they bought a nice cover. I like it. Cool. It's cool to see that different kind of level of the distribution of it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%.
Dubious says, your review is why I listen to Mirror Reaper. Hell yeah, a lot of people have told me that, and it's definitely that's a flag I'm really happy to wave from the ramparts. Everybody, yeah.
I'm glad you get to wave it, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, let's just listen to Bell Witch full discography for the rest of the stream. I mean, we certainly could. We'd have to get out our sleeping bags because that is a.
I have to go.
Yeah, I can't think of anything more like torturous than me getting out a gun and be like, listen to your whole discography in front of a group of people while they comment on it. How does that feel?
I'm gonna need more peyote tea for this.
Yeah, just barfing in a bucket. Oh my god. Yeah, Pinky need, if we're gonna do that. Yeah, that's a good point. If we're gonna do a full discography listen, we need our Bell Witch pillowcases for that. Absolutely.
Indeed.
There you go.
Where's Sleep Country at right now?
Yeah, what's Sleep Country doing? Hit us up, Sleep Country. Come on, get us on the phone. All right, so we were sort of talking about Shape of Despair. Shape of Despair got run over by goofy silliness and palling around, but. I mean, they're on there. They've been mentioned a lot in the chat. I don't think there's a lot of argument about that Monotony Fields being up there, being included. What do I got here? Let's get back into lock horns mode.
You kind of touched on this earlier, but I think a tough thing about the Essential Modern section is we could very easily put every Evoken album and every Esoteric album and every Mournful Congregation album in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the limit is, but I would almost say for the sake of ease, since those are in the Essential Earlies, maybe we have to look elsewhere to other bands that aren't. Okay.
Yeah, it's nice to shine a little bit of light elsewhere to get kind of,
Sure.
There's a couple bands that are a little newer that would be kind of cool to. I have one that I actually want to ask you about because it's kind of we'll get, but yeah, Shape of Despair I think is for sure a lock in there. Wreck-It Riff says, hey Blaine and hey Dylan, how you doing? Okay, all right. Aaron actually any love for Atramentus Stygian, obviously very new. So this is a question I have for you. How do you feel about that record? Because it's got a Lewandowski cover and it's called Stygian.
I mean, it's fantastic. And that's Phil, who is also in, I'm going to butcher the name here, but Cathilius? Cathilius? I'm saying it horrible. Anyhow, maybe I'm saying it right. I don't know. But he is a badass. In every band is he in that band Worm also?
I believe so, right? Yeah, they actually they shot me a message. Worm, I got a Worm message saying that they were going to check out the video the live stream, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay.
Worm, yeah, doing great things in Death Doom. Yeah, you got Philip there doing. I mean, he's got a million bands.
He's great.
He's great. I got a little Worm flag hanging up behind my my setup at home. But yeah, that Atramentus record I definitely had in here to. Where did I put it? Where did it go? What the? Oh, there it is. So what is it, like just a hilarious coincidence that the record was called Stygian with you kind of getting your Stygian bow thing going?
I think that's just a...
It's also just a word. Yeah, it's just so funny. I was like, I wonder if there's any like professional rivalry now going on here. Like, I gotta do it.
And a funny thing, there's also a band that has some of the guys from Morgian. Morgian is an interesting one that we haven't talked about. Who is another Relapse band from the early days. But I think it's the drummer from Morgian has a band called Stygian Crown, I believe.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Which is, I don't think that they were pulling from the same source when they were naming it Stygian Crown as we were when we named the collaboration Stygian Bow. But there's some parallels in, I think, what the meaning of both of those are. And it's kind of like, damn. I think before I'd heard of Stygian is not a word that's like commonly in my vocabulary. We were,
you're not dropping Stygian left and right in conversation.
But I think that it was like all of a sudden there were three bands that had Stygian somewhere in the name or in the album title or whatnot. It was like, damn it, that all happened all at the same time, didn't it? Which was, I mean, I think it's totally coincidental. I mean, yeah. I can't imagine I don't think any of us were like writing each other being like, hey, Stygian.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. It's like it's one of those things where you're like, did like a movie come out that was good that we all saw, and like one of those things. Yeah, right. Because I mean, this Atramentus record is great. I had it. I've talked about it on the channel already. Yeah, I just absolutely love it. I mean, you got the vocals are really cool. You got like weird beast man, and then it's kind of like almost like an epic heavy metal, but they're also buried that like you can kind of have these more like epic-y vocals without it kind of snapping out of the funeral feel. And man, I love the cymbals on this record have a really like that like. No, they sound shitty, but I mean that as a compliment. Like they sound like that funeral doom where you're like, is that a trash can lid he's banging on? I love it. I love the sound. Yeah.
Keeping it real.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we did have Worm is just because Atramentus is also in Worm, or is Worm, or what Atramentus and Worm have. There's yeah, yeah. CEO of gaming. Yeah, they're definitely more in the Death Doom camp. We had another. Oh shoot.
I would put Despond from Lost real
Yeah.
heavy in the Essential Modern too, because that's a fucking great record. And
Yes.
those guys were, yeah, they've been doing that for a long time. I don't think they're together anymore, which is too bad. But they're fucking great.
Yeah, that's another one I had in here. I was just having to Google it because again, another album cover where you're having to really squint. But yeah, that is Loss is a pretty cool one where you're getting like they're dancing a little bit in the Death Doom. They're dancing a little bit in the Death Doom places, but yeah, you've got like it's almost like the Doom is like hooded menacey, but then you've got like these like super subtly soft parts and like the kind of back and forth, and it's like this is a record that like say you've got this stark black and white cover and this heavier side to it, but it's like a pretty arty record as well. It lives in both the world of like heavy and arty, and I think it does a really good job of kind of straddling those lines, but not like it's not like you're like, oh man, go back to the heavy parts, get this arty bullshit out of here.
It's never too much. It's not pretentious at all. Like they did a really good job. That's a really fucking good record, and Horizonless was fucking great too. All the stuff early stuff they did was also really good. Like that's just a great band.
Okay, Harry coming in with some news. Mr. Funeral Doom #1. I spoke with their drummer as he sold me some demos/bits. They aren't officially broken up. As far as I can tell, their main vocalist is dealing with some mental health issues. It's just a hiatus. Okay, well, that's simultaneously a bummer to hear. I hope their vocalist is doing all right, but also good to hear that maybe we get some more tunes out of him. Tyranny's another. Tyranny's referenced in the chat. That's certainly again Finland, and those are guys that really make some scary Funeral Doom.
Maki from that is also in Prophetus, who are fucking great, and he was also one of the guys who did Wormflim.
Yeah. Yes.
Way back in the day, which is fucking great.
Yeah, these are all like definitely in like the terrifying category. And
Prophetus might. I mean, I don't know. In my head, I would put them in the Essential Modern just because every one of their records is so good.
Really. Well, we're
they grab that, like, I don't know, the organs and the keys, and that's a great band.
You've caught me with my pants down. I don't have that downloaded, but yeah, that is. I mean,
it's on, Blaine. We're on live television.
Yeah, luckily we've got a decent table. I learned of Prophetus through Dylan's Facebook. Thanks for adding me. That's a really gnarly album. Colosseum is worth a consideration. Yes, Colosseum is another big one.
That's a great band. And Comatose Vigil too. Kind of. I believe they're Russian. They're great. I think I discovered those two bands at like maybe the same day. Their names both start with a C. So in my head, I kind of like connect them.
Yeah, there's also when you think of Colosseum, there's also obviously the like other Colosseum that's very much not a Funeral Doom band.
Sure.
that you're like Colosseum. Wait, Funeral Doom. Oh right, yeah, Colosseum. Right. But yeah, I mean this is one of the interesting ones where it kind of uses like it's like a very ambient album. It's a very like. It's almost like half of the album is like chill sounds to meditate to, with like well accompanied with Funeral Doom, and very typical in our Finnish group. But technically,
when did that record come out?
Colosseum the Colosseum Chapter 1 came out in 2007. 2007.
Yeah, that's an early one.
Yeah.
That's a great record.
Yeah, little worship sounding-y.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But definitely you get a lot of that. Like, it's a cold record. It's a very cold record. Yeah,
definitely.
Kind of almost like bringing some of that, like, because it's atmospheric. You're getting a little bit of that black metal feel to it, just because of the like really coldness of it. You kind of reminds me of Chapter 1 is For Sure Your Vote. It sounds exactly like the album cover sounds. Lo-fi funeral beats to study / be sad to. Okay, so we
Not
now...
so different from Coliseum. Also, that EA album.
Yeah.
Those two are. There's some parallels and stylistically between those two. I think in like the best way. That all those EA albums are really good too.
Yeah, and I mean you've got the funness of a mystery band where they don't tell you who they are or where they're from, and you've got a little bit of your vibe going with it's a 3-song album, but it's actually just one song, and it's just like It's just like they were just like they were just cutting a loaf of bread. It's like it's a loaf of bread. You can't make a slice of bread. What does Funeral do? I listen to metalcore. Imagine if you could music on the exact opposite end of the spectrum of what you listen to, and you'll have a bit of an idea of what Funeral Doom is. The slowest, slow, sad music. Wreck-It riffs. I can't fall asleep to Mirror Reaper. I want to hear the instruments. Yeah. I know it's off topic, but I won't need to know, will Dylan dust off his high school bassoon for the new Bellwitch record?
Holy shit, who said that?
Harry, of course, #1.
Harry
Pulling a Nardwuar here, and
well, let's just say there might be a bassoon part. No, there's not going to be a bassoon. The bassoons cost like when I was in high school, the high school owned one, so I would just play that. I think that those are like $20,000 instruments for like the cheap ones. I think. I mean, maybe it's not that much. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, in school I also played an instrument in the band, and I played double bass again. Basically the reason I played double bass is so the way the school did it at first, like, because I started playing in like grade 3, the school was like, okay, if you're doing band, you just get randomly assigned an instrument. And it's like you could get sax, or you could get fucking bassoon. You know what I mean? Like it was like that was for gamblers, right? That was for you're gambling if you're going to the band. Strings was like you could go into strings and you basically knew what you were getting, right? You're getting one of 4 sizes. And the reason I ended up with double bass was they were just like, my parents at the time drove a GMC Safari, which is a big old van, Fit
a big old drum in it.
And it was like I can play double bass because I think the only one that will be able to take this home and practice with it.
Teachers were like, it would be a shame to make that boy play clarinet.
Yeah, right. What a waste of that spacious back. The GMC Safari, truly a vehicle for the family on the grow. I promise this is a compliment. Whenever my friends have house parties and we want people to get the hell out, we toss on Mirror Reaper, and it usually knocks people out of their drunken stupors long enough to stumble out of the house. It is a great party ender for sure. That's nice. It's definitely not a party starter record.
Which I think is something that I love about Funeral Doom in general. Is it doesn't make the party happen at all. If anything, It pretty much ends the party. So like I mentioned earlier, I used to have a music venue in Seattle before the pandemic, and it was kind of a running joke amongst all the bartenders. They're like, well, if Bellwitch is going to play tonight, we're not going to sell any beer because everyone's just going to stand there and fucking probably get really stoned and not drink beer. Whereas like the next night, if like, I don't know, something fast is playing, they're like, yeah, we sell a shit ton of beer then.
Bellwitch, I'm trying to make tips over here, buddy. What, you're trying to take food out of my kid's mouth with this Bellwitch shit?
Ruined everyone's fucking financial situation. Like, I want that night off.
Yeah, pain experience. Honestly, though, if you vibe with Funeral Doom, you're allowed to stay at the party. Yeah, that's one of those nice when you're like, that's a nice floor party where everybody's like, hey, why do we even sit on couches? This floor is pretty nice. We got pillows. We got Bellwitch branded pillows we could be lying on. And then
peyote in the punch.
We got peyote in the punch, yeah. Corey Richard, oh, damn, Dylan, did the venue close down?
Yeah, it was, our rent was fucking astronomical, and then we couldn't even really open, so it was like, what can you do? It died a very COVID-y death.
Yeah, death by 1,000 cuts. Just a
Yeah,
slow
yeah,
bleed, not a big explosion. Just
exactly, exactly.
well, I mean, we do have to. We are getting close to wrap up o'clock, though. I mean,
Wrap up
technically,
o'clock.
we've exceeded wrap up o'clock, but there's also no clock. I mean, it's just I'm here operating a computer. I
What
can.
is time?
What is
After all this
time?
peyote, I don't even.
I mean, it is very fitting for the funeral doom Lockhorns to go over time. Absolutely, it's definitely the right feel, the right emotion, the right vibe to go with it. But I'm thinking we do need to start landing this plane, and we have 6 essential early and 6 essential moderns, and so we're breaking some rules here. We're breaking some rules here, but it is a hard list to cull.
And we also said that like every esoteric album and every Evoken album belong on the modern. So the modern is really pretty hefty list by this.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And yeah, there was a mention in the chat about Doom versus Doom vs Doom VS, which we didn't even get a chance to talk about yet. Always kind of there's a bunch, I'll do a quick blast of shout outs to some that we didn't manage to talk about. We didn't get to Nort Gudsforlat out of Denmark, which is like kind of the first black metal-y funeral doom record.
Nord fucking rules.
Which is really good. We didn't give Doom versus Doom VS. I always just want to say versus. I know it's not versus. Just has those great like warning-esque Doom vocals to them. Very like very beautiful man singing. You got Elysian Blaze, again, another kind of one of the more black metal influenced one. We didn't talk a lot about the black metal influenced ones, and
Nord nails that.
Yeah.
Nord is definitely, I think, the ones they were really carrying that torch. And
yeah.
a great thing about them is how it's similar to the other stuff we were saying earlier. They're you have to really pay attention when you're listening to Nord. Nord's not just like an easy listening sort of thing. They're great.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. And I think I mean there's obviously a million bands you can always chat about, but I think that's Catacombs, a very very peculiar one. Catacombs, just a one-off by a terrifying man who only took terrifying photos ever, like just a man from Arizona like this, shaved head, like in every picture he's ever taken, and yeah, definitely probably didn't have the huge impact, but definitely Catacombs in the depths of Raila is certainly one of the kind of the essentials. The essentials if you're getting a little more underground. Harry asking me to
killer record.
Killer record, yeah. So okay, but that's just to do a quick little tour. All right, what are we thinking? What are we thinking for our essential early and our essential modern? We're gonna have to axe. We're gonna have to really get out the Edward Scissorhands, and get rid of kind of one of these before we go from each of them. But I don't know who to do it with.
Yeah, I don't know. I this is kind of like in the situation when you got like you're at the buffet and you got a huge plate full of food and you're like, I can't eat all of this.
Yeah, but you're like,
just eat it all.
But I need to take it. I'm gonna take it back with me and
Can I make a buffet joke? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was my buffet joke. I'm not gonna make any more, but
the only buffet joke. The only buffet joke. Yeah. What are we? I mean, I do really love this record, but I mean the Atramentis record did just come out. It's a very fresh one, so potentially if we're saying essential to like the kind of the shape of the genre, Atramentis maybe not quite essential in just that it's an awesome album that I absolutely love, and maybe we'll do this, maybe we'll come back again in a couple years and do this again, and then we'll be like, can you believe the shape of the genre that Atramentis caused, because that is a great album, and I imagine they've got some some great albums. I mean, that dude seems to be a machine, right?
Yeah, totally.
Just able to crank out stuff. And then oh man, how do we get something out of Essential Early with the 6 we have in Essential Early?
We could put that Pantheist record could go in there, I think.
We're trying to take out, we're not trying to put in.
I'm still at the buffet over here.
You're still at the buffet being like, orange chicken? I mean, come on. How are you going to say no to orange chicken?
Put some gravy on it.
The Atramentis record is my gateway drug to Quebec. Nice. Dubious. Yeah. That's a great piece of Quebecois, little Canadian flavor. Quebec is a great place if you want like cold records to come from. Yeah. Certainly. We could. Oh yeah, we could potentially cheat Chris Bazaar coming in huge with some nice casual cheating strats that we could we could just bump one up to Legend. We could just maybe include that Funeral in Legend as well. That's not a terrible album. It's not a terrible album. Terrible suggestion. Obviously, that's not a terrible album either.
Stormcrow Fleet could probably go into Legend also.
Stormcrow Fleet could go into Legend also. Damn, we're okay. Let's say maybe we put the both of them in there, and then we have maybe done our job. And speaking of doing our jobs, we did have someone ask, hey, do we have a Discord server? And yeah, if you like Discord servers, we absolutely have a Discord server, and you can click down below. There's a link to it, but I'm also a gentleman, so I am going to quickly toss a link in the chat because I'm a gentleman and not because I absolutely should do that to appropriately promote what we're doing here.
It's a very gentlemanly thing to do.
Thank you. That's what I think as well. So Twitch, here you go. If you're looking for the official Banger Discord server, here's a link in the chat. We can talk in there. Official BangerTV Discord server. Ooh, very grim. The server. There we go. All right. Yeah, I think we've made a pretty solid list. I like at least Atramentis getting tossed in there with the quick little acknowledgement. We can still see it. Legends looks good. I mean, those two albums did come out very close to each other. They're similar but different, and I think we've got a pretty good skepticism goes in Legend because that Funeral art is kind of ugly. Look, a lot of these albums have kind of ugly art. I mean, the modern period is where we start to get some real exceptions. Yeah, definitely early Funeral Doom was a Photoshop gradient tool. Might as well just be yeah. Off topic, but we got to hear from Dylan what it was like playing with Neurosis a few years back. Wisconsin Yeti.
It was so fucking cool. Like, I grew up thinking, I mean, like, when I was in, I think when, the first Neurosis album, let's see, I think the first one that, like, really clicked with me was probably Through Silver and Blood and Enemy of the Sun.
Enemy of the Sun for me, too, yeah.
Those were the ones that I was kind of like, when I was discovering it, those were the two that were on the table, and then, like, Times of Grace came out afterwards. And I had The Word Is Law, I think, and I was like, this is a cool record, but I didn't like put it on and just rip it all the time. And then when I got those two, it was like, whoa, this is something different. Like, this is fucking cool. And playing with him every night was, I don't know, that's a very, it's a tough question, because there was part of me that was just like, man, every night I'd be thinking like, when I was a kid, I fucking worshiped this band. I mean, I still do. They're fucking great. But it was there's something fulfilling in that, you know, and like in being like, this is the band that I used to listen to all the fucking time, and now I'm playing shows with them. That's so cool. So I guess to answer the question, it was awesome.
Yeah,
it was the coolest.
Yeah, definitely. I was at that show, caught you on that tour. Yeah, that was awesome. And my cool Neurosis story. I have so many stories from 2011 Maryland Death Fest, because 2011 Maryland Death Fest happened to just be like one of the craziest years for like lineup and stuff that happened. And it was my first time seeing Neurosis. I had really wanted. I love Neurosis, but I didn't have any merch, and I was so excited. And I went to the merch booth, and they had like the ugliest shirt I've ever fucking seen in my life. And I was like, well, I still want to give these guys some money, because it was like the shirt was like a wolf with like, there was like some design behind it. It looked like
the Time to Grace.
Yeah, it looked brutal. But it said Neurosis on the back in over the shoulders in the big words, and I eventually just ended up cutting that out and stitching it into a vest when I blew out the shoulders of my vest. But I saw them there, and they were playing on one of the outdoor stages. Because at the time there was the inside, and then there was the two outdoor stages facing each other, and they'd alternate. And they were setting up, and as they were setting up, it started to like thunderstorm, and it was like a thunderstorm. And you know, it's when Maryland Death Fest happened, so it wasn't cold or anything, so you could kind of be out in the thunderstorm. But we're all just standing around, and they're like, "We're gonna wait for the storm to clear before we play." And then they waited, and the storm like let up a bit, but it just was like, "This is not clearing." Then they were like, fuck it, I guess we'll just play. And Neurosis played in a thunderstorm, and
That's awesome.
What a perfect way to see Neurosis, right? What a perfect band to play in a thunderstorm. Just like, just a really nice experience.
That's the coolest thing about outdoor gigs, I think. Like, I don't like them at all, because it's like, this is too weird. But like when that sort of shit happens, it's like that made it worth it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see if we got anything in the chat. We're more. Can we have more Dylan and Blaine fangirling? Make it another side series. Hey, thanks, Funky Pico. Captain, obviously lame. More Blaine x Dylan streams. Yes, this was so fun. Thanks so much. Very kind. Very kind. Geigen Man saw Dylan back in 2019 in Wisconsin. Had a local doom band called Bereft open for them. Great stuff.
Yeah. That was a great show.
Nice. Funky Pico, I love Dylan's big smile. He looks so uncomfortable, even though this is a very genuine setting and it is completely mood. Yeah, you know. Hey, we're communicating digitally. You're always get a bit of a hiccup where you kind of gotta like wait until someone's done talking so that you're like not clipping out their audio or something. You know, it's like you can't quite have the fluid conversation. There's always a bit of a pause where you're like, are they done talking? I don't want to cut them off, because you get that awkward like Zoom like, no you go, no you go, no you go. Quarry Ritual, yeah, definitely a huge fan of the stream. Keen for another with the two of you. Well, we can definitely have Dylan back. We got to get you on Twitch. You got to start Twitch streaming, and then I'll come on your stream and we'll do something together.
Maybe it has to happen.
Yeah, buddy. And hey, thanks to Andy Blackwheel and Rogue Doer of Things for the follows, coming at the end, getting in the follows. If you missed the start of this, obviously we will be uploading this in a couple weeks to YouTube. There's like a week or two delay. But yeah, Dylan, thanks for coming out. Is there anything you want to let's plug with the chat? Tell them that you're up to. Get them excited about. Any news you want to share?
I guess thanks for having me. Thanks for everyone for watching and listening. I did have another project called, it's not my project. It's called Serpentant. It's someone else's project, but I'm playing bass on it.
Hey.
A record is coming out on the 20th of this month. So that's in 9 days. It's good stuff, kind of like psychedelic, dark folk sort of in that world. Maybe you could almost say neo-folk. You might not say that. It's really cool. If you like all these bands, it's not Funeral Doom, but I think that if you like these bands we just listed, you probably like it too. It's coming out on Svart Records from Finland also.
Svart Records.
And it's Serpentant. Serpentent.
Serpentant?
Yeah.
Let me toss a link. Serpentant.
Yep.
Svart Records. I'm probably garbaging the spelling of that. Serpentant. Oh, that's a nice cover. I didn't hear this yet. Why didn't you tell me about this?
It hasn't come out yet. The 20th, it'll be like fully available. There's like 2 songs on there that can be listened to now. But
Yeah, I'm trying to get to the Bandcamp to try
but
and there we go. There we go.
the
We got
record's
the
really
Bandcamp.
good. I'm proud of how it came out.
Amazing. So yeah. And this is you like joining the band or like a guest session kind of thing?
It's my old friend Ann O'Neill, and she kind of started the project as like an acoustic guitar and her. Not so different from what Aerial Ruin's doing, who has been
Okay.
a longtime collaborator with Bellwitch. Different projects, of course, and coming from different angles, but just like acoustic guitar and vocals. And at one point, she was like, I want to add instrumentation on this record. So I did bass, and another guy named Joey did synthesizers and percussion. And I think it came out really good. The record's great. I'm excited for everyone to get a hold of it because it's killer.
Awesome. Well, there's a link in the chat to that as well. The Bandcamp. That's great. We got a bunch of news. We got a bunch of new stuff from you. It was great to have you. As a reminder, of course, we have the Patreon as well that you can catch new Bellwitch stuff slash Dylan stuff as a little nice little IV drip to keep you from going into shock of not having enough Bellwitch in your life. So, Dylan, thanks so much for coming out. That's been the stream. Big thanks to our chat. You guys were great. We really appreciate you hanging out. This one, we were doing essential thrash albums, so this one is, a little more off the beaten path. So we really appreciate you coming out and supporting the stream and hanging with us. It was a great time. And yeah, thanks so much, chat. You're the best. We love you. We'll see you next time. Party on.
Bye, everyone.